Good morning. Welcome to our CADRe launch event. This is an event for all of you, right? And our institutional leaders, I couldn't be more grateful to all of you for your support and the opportunity to establish the center. CADRe is a simple idea. The idea is for us to innovate and literally to bring new diagnostic technologies to patient care, to improve the outcomes of the patients who come to us seeking not just to treat their disease, but to identify it earlier, understand it better, and then to create more individualized opportunity. I think that probably from a year and a few months ago when I arrived at Columbia, when I knew that this was a place that took on challenges scientifically, right, in terms of every opportunity seized to serve a community that was truly special, and scientifically truly is in a world-class setting. And every ounce of that has been surpassed, in my opinion. Certainly no shortage of challenge, no shortage of vision, no challenge too big for us to take on. And it's really my pleasure to be able to introduce a little video introducing the center. I want to thank all of our team members who worked so hard to produce this video. Hope you enjoy.
Diagnostics is an entirely new world for us. We're moving from a single event to really a complete part of the patient's journey.
Screening, surveillance, early detection, monitoring the efficacy of therapy.
We're moving towards a paradigm where we can use imaging to understand not just what does something look like, but what is it? And will it respond to this investigational intervention?
We have amazing imaging tools. We also have biomarker blood tools, as well as genomic and genetic tools. The combination of the data allows us to get a better insight into the nature of the tumor or the nature of the disease.
There's so much information that we have now, and it's a crucial time to integrate that information and be leaders in the field of driving it towards improved patient outcomes.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to our research division.
CADRe's core mission is to help drive the right technologies for diagnosis towards implementation.
When we think about new diagnostic technologies, whether it's AI or any number of new diagnostics that will emerge in the coming years, we have to be very thoughtful as leaders in academic medicine to think about what tools actually improve the outcomes of our patients.
We can develop a lot of imaging tests to do on our patients, and we can develop a lot of AI algorithms to add to that. The question of whether this brings value and will impact the care of our patients is the one that CADRe as a center can address.
So after we know that it can find the disease, we have to answer questions like, is it really improving the care for patients? Is it really delivering the impact that we want to see?
Does it deliver something better in clinical care versus what is currently the gold standard? Does it disrupt any other day-to-day activities? What if the tool predicts something wrong?
There's pure machine learning research, and then there's research that's right at the cutting edge of clinical deployment, and I think Stella's work sits there, and that's why the hospital is so interested in working with her.
In the field of molecular imaging, Columbia is uniquely situated. We have tremendous strengths in our clinical departments and, of course, our cancer center. CADRe will think alongside our collaborating investigators about the human translation.
We can design trials at Columbia that are asking the key questions about a therapeutic intervention, a drug effect in a patient. But at the same time, we're able to test from a diagnostic imaging perspective, molecular perspective, and using AI tools that we can integrate those with the therapeutic to have a much better prediction of the outcomes of patients.
The goal is to gain knowledge, to move the clinical trials along for FDA approval so that it can get into standard of care.
For a small kidney mass, there are a number of options for what direction to go.
One of the greatest potentials is for us to make an impact by involving the patient in their care.
In the right type of patient, it's a reasonable choice to monitor that.
My group made a kidney tool to help patients to input important pieces of information about their particular kidney tumor that is newly diagnosed, and also information about their current health state. The idea is that when patients are better informed, they can make high-quality decisions alongside their providers. The initial clinical trial was 40 patients, and we saw significant improvement in knowledge and a larger proportion of patients who wanted to consider options other than surgery. The important part is how successfully the patients undergo the therapies. Those outcomes were also positive.
It takes a vision to integrate innovation with implementation by bringing different people together, different backgrounds, different sets of expertise, and converge on a common approach to address a common problem.
This center is going to bring together people across disciplines. It is unique. Nothing like it has happened in academic medicine.
There's a whole wealth of that knowledge and expertise at Columbia. We have clinical centers of excellence, very active clinician scientists who are all working in areas that have high potential to create and then translate the new diagnostics.
We're doing this now because we need to do this now. Our patients need us to take all of the research and all of the data we've been collecting in kind of siloed ways and in different spaces and bring it together to really benefit them.
In the end, the advances that we make in diagnostics and medical imaging help to improve the lives of patients here at Columbia and across the world. Well, good morning and welcome. I wanted to begin by thanking everyone for being here. This is really an exciting day for the Department of Radiology, for VPNS, for Columbia, for our partners in industry and in the hospital. And I wanted to begin by congratulating Stella Kang. So Stella arrived here to the Columbia community about 18 months ago, a few months after I arrived. And she's really been a transformative vice chair for clinical research in the Department of Radiology. And she's had an amazing ability to bring together people, ideas, and collaborations together, and a vision of science that has really, as you can see from this video, gotten all of us excited and here today to hear more about the launch of CADRe. For those of you who have worked with Stella, you know what a talent she is. And for those of you who will work with her, you'll find out what a deeply collaborative and visionary scientist that we have at the helm of this new institute. I wanted to begin by answering a question, and the question is, why now? Why are we thinking about launching this new initiative at a time of deep and great uncertainty in academic medicine and in biomedical research? And as I've reflected on the reason why the time is right now to begin CADRe, I've thought about a couple of trends that have occurred in healthcare over the last, let's say, 20 to 30 years. One is that our ability to measure biology has transformed in really profound ways over the last 20 years or so. Thanks to some of the innovations from fields like biomedical engineering, we now have better tools, devices, scanners, assays, sequencers that really allow us with great precision to measure in vivo biology. These tools tend to be now more portable, more accessible, and so we can gather information at a scale that we never had before. The second trend that's occurring now is that our ability to synthesize data has undergone amazing transformations, and we're in the moment of that transformation now as we speak. So when we think about the advances in data science and AI, we can now take large, huge, vast amounts of data and gain insights into that data in ways that we never have before. So when we think about having better tools to gather information and better ways to understand that information, we're really at a point in time that we never have been before. And I think this is exactly the right moment to move things forward. The other question I wanted to answer is, why here at Columbia? Well, when you think about evaluating diagnostic technologies and bringing new technologies to patients, it really takes a team. Team science will move us forward. And Stella has assembled in this room, and those who couldn't be here today, a list of amazing clinicians, engineers, population health experts, partners in industry, our partners in the hospital, pathologists, molecular diagnostics, et cetera. And so when you bring together this multidisciplinary team, we're really poised to do things that we couldn't in a siloed or an independent fashion within each of those disciplines. So when I think about CADRe, I'm excited about several things. I'll tell you three things that I'm really excited about as we think about the research program that Stella will lead in the years to come. First is this idea of translation, taking prototype of a new diagnostic technology and bringing it into our clinical space. How do we test these technologies? How do we design rigorous scientific methods and experiments to really show that these technologies can be adopted and work in a clinical setting? I guess the second area that I'm interested in is to see how CADRe can work with another center that we have housed in the Department of Radiology, CIMBID, to allow us to extract as much information as we can from the testing that we already are doing and will do in the future. As we often think in radiology, when we look at an image or any imaging test, we're really just scratching the surface. We're probably meaningfully only extracting around 10% of the data that exists within that imaging test using the most expert of human observers. So we're leaving a lot on the table, and the efforts of CADRe will really help us to unlock the full value of that diagnostic data. And I think the third and perhaps most overlooked aspect of the research program here at CADRe that I'm interested in is allowing us to choose among competing technologies. Technologies are advancing really at a breakneck speed. We will be faced with multiple AI algorithms, multiple scanners to choose from, multiple assays and sequencing technologies, and we can't adopt all of them every time. We have to be able to assess how and which technologies actually improve the lives of our patients. We have to also think about which technologies provide societal benefit. We have to decide how to measure that, whether it's cost effectiveness, whether it's reducing disparities. And those are some of the really important questions that Stella is really well versed in answering, and I think we'll see a lot of that in the years to come from this particular institute and the center. So again, congratulations to Stella and all of you. I'm really, really excited, and I'm particularly grateful to the next speaker, Katrina Armstrong. Katrina really needs no introduction in this room, and she's done so much, I think, to advance our work in radiology and was critical for me to join this team and has really been extremely supportive of the vision around CADRe. What you may not know about Katrina is that when you look at her scholarship over the years, she really has been focused on diagnostic imaging, thinking about screening, thinking about risk prediction. So she may not admit this. She did train in medicine. She was a distinguished chair of medicine at Mass General, but deep down, I think she is a radiologist at heart and thinks a lot about imaging. And so her philosophy of sort of how to think about diagnostics, how to really make sure we're doing the right test for the right patient at the right time is so central to the meaning and the purpose of what we're trying to do here at CADRe, and we're delighted to have her here give us some opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Ajay. I will say it's not actually that secret that I desire to join the imaging world. It's been a longstanding belief of mine as a physician, really before a scientist, that our ability to understand what's going on under the skin of a patient with any tool we can is absolutely essential to our ability to do what's right for that patient. Imaging has been so much at the forefront of that. I remember when I was at MGH, I sat under one of the portraits, I guess, of one of the creators of imaging, which as I understand it, he eventually died from radiation poisoning. But let's just say it was a moment to understand that if we can bring these fields together, if we can think as a whole about the patient across every tool we can, and then place that patient both within their own journey, where they've been, what their health has been, what their context has been, but also within the populations that we can study to understand that variation from a population level and from a history level. I truly believe there is no problem that we can't take on, no challenge, as Stella says, that we can't make an impact on. I will just say, and I'm going to be very brief here, I'm going to say three things. The first is that this department is on fire. You guys are doing unbelievably great things. And I think Stella's leadership, Ajay's leadership, Despina, everybody who's come here, everybody who's been here, this is an incredible department at an incredible time. I do believe that it is going to change medicine and continue to change medicine and will be known as the department that has driven this field forward. The second thing I want to say is I believe that happens both because of the excellence within the department, because of leadership from people like Stella, and I couldn't be a bigger fan. I've been trying to get Stella to come wherever I was for a long time, so thank you, Stella. But it is not just because of the leadership within, the excellence within, the ability to come together, but it's really about your ability to catalyze. It is about the ability of this department to catalyze science across many different areas, to work, as Murdoch said in the film, with genomics and pathology and every discipline to make imaging the center of the future precision medicine. I think it was that sold Ajay on coming here, that we can build that. So this department drives forward a new paradigm for how we care for patients, and I believe that so very strongly. The third thing I want to say is probably a little more personal. So I've been in medicine a long time. Actually, can I think about how long? I've been married 35 years. So I got married at the end of medical school. So let's call that when I joined medicine. And I will say over those 35 years, we have struggled, particularly in academic medicine, to understand how we're truly going to do what we said or was said in that video of actually deliver value to our patients. I've seen so many different attempts to try to crack that nut. We started, as some of you may remember, in the 90s with thinking about managed care and how we were going to change different plans and we were going to invest in primary care and prevention. We went through a whole era of thinking about how we were going to do this at the high finance level. Do you guys remember accountable care? Does anybody remember those eras where we were going to change the outcomes for our patients by how we paid for care? I've been at the forefront of all of that. I've been in more conference rooms than you could imagine and more Medicare this or NIH that. And what I've come to believe is that the way that we are truly going to drive value for our patients is not because we change how we pay for it, but it's because we change what we do. And that driving value has to come from doctors and scientists coming together to find new ways to make an impact for that patient. And that academic medicine has a responsibility to go all the way from the most fundamental discovery that we can, think of, to where we come together to understand how it should be used, how it can be used, and how it will forever make the world in medicine higher value and better for everyone. And so I now believe, after a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, a lot of struggle and failure. You learn most from your failures, right? So a lot of attempts to believe that we were going to do this through financing and other ways, that the way that we will transform medicine is because of what's being done in this department, because of CADRe, because of developing the new tools. And so I couldn't be more grateful to have been part of launching this, to have brought Stella and the team. I think I helped pick the name. And so really couldn't be more grateful to be part of this and really looking forward to everything that it does. It's an incredibly bright era for this work. And I know that this center will lead it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Ajay, Katrina. I'm still furiously taking notes every time you both talk. I can't tell you how grateful I am for your support. I can't conceive of, I think, better mentors, friends, people who are truly dedicated to what we do. So thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about our mission. The future of medicine depends on our ability to detect disease earlier and characterize it more precisely and monitor it more effectively. In short, when I talk to potential funders and just friends, sometimes I have to explain, if you want precision therapy, you have to have precision diagnostics. Every major clinical decision begins with information, diagnosis, risk assessment, and treatment selection, response monitoring, and all of the decisions we're making. The quality of those depends on our ability to generate the right decision and the right choice. So precision diagnostics will transform whatever biological signals we're looking at into actionable knowledge. They are foundational to this concept of precision medicine. And yet, despite remarkable technological advances today, translation remains one of the greatest bottlenecks. And CADRe was established to help bridge this gap. And so now within our department, we have two complementary centers addressing different stages of the innovation pipeline. SIMBID is focused upon discovery science and AI, developing novel biomarkers, computational approaches, and foundational methods. There's no better leader at the helm of that than Despina Kontos. And CADRe is focused on clinical translation, implementation, evaluating and validating and integrating, trying to scale up these innovations in real-world clinical environments. And so together, these centers will create a continuum from scientific discovery to clinical impact. And our objective is very simple. We want to ensure that promising innovations don't stop at proof of concept or early validation, but ultimately do reach patients. I want to illustrate the challenge with a practical example since I'm a clinically trained person. So if we have a person who presents with a visible oral cavity lesion, sometimes they'll present early, they're lucky enough, but most oftentimes oral squamous cell cancer is diagnosed in late stage. So if we want to think about the possibility of screening, which is not really widely implemented at this time, we have to look at the potential benefits and harms. So are there possible tests? Sure. If we have point of care technology through computer vision and brushings from the mucosal lining, there is a possibility. So some of the rare patients who present in early stage might have an opportunity for early detection and therefore treatment with much higher survival. And then the rest of the patients who have benign lesions won't go down a pathway of having unnecessary biopsies and worry about whether their lesion is cancerous. So a collaborator of mine, this is a story of a collaboration, which is what the center is really about, had already worked with his team of engineers, developed precision imaging technology, and gone through an NIH grant opportunity trial, SBIR opportunities, and had independently validated the performance of a precision system for doing just that. But how do we know, he said, how do I know that this diagnostic model is good enough? How do I know when I go to my potential next source of funding, commercialization potential, all of this, that my model is good enough? And how do we implement the diagnostic test to optimize value for the health system and for patients? So here, this is just a diagram showing what the tool is made to do. It's not binary. It's meant to be a true risk classifier, bringing optical imaging and cellular analysis to the point of care. He had spent more than a decade honing this technology on a cartridge so that it could truly be done in a lab or at the bedside. But diagnostic accuracy was necessary but not sufficient. So we can produce tables of test performance characteristics, but they're intermediate measures in the end. And the ultimate goal has to be to develop a test that performs well for patients and in the real world. So we have to satisfy multiple stakeholders simultaneously. The patients have to find the test acceptable, clinicians have to trust and adopt the test, health systems have to implement them efficiently, developers also have to find opportunity that's appropriate for themselves. What are the clinical use cases? So the challenge doesn't stop with building better technology. It's to build a technology that creates value across the entire healthcare ecosystem. And our own health system should seek better outcomes and efficient use of resources. All of our clinicians keep this in mind too. They want to make sure the tools they're using actually improve decision-making. The developers have to find where the meaningful impact and all of their own objectives are aligned. And so a major focus of CADRe will be to identify where that alignment exists and generate evidence that is required to support adoption. So therefore, one of the most powerful examples of what we can do today with computing is the opportunity to evaluate strategies before we go out in the real world and implement. So if we look at risk factors and all of these individual characteristics of patients and lesions and underlying information, we can actually create these diagnostic pathways in silico. And so we can identify populations who are most likely to benefit, understand trade-offs, and prioritize high-value implementation strategies. And in many cases, years of uncertainty can be reduced, into minutes of processing before the real-world studies are designed and those studies begin. And I'm happy to say that this example of a collaboration successfully was pitched to a very large dental provider and ultimately commercialized. So this is a story that goes on, but a large part of the evaluation that was so core to that pitch and to success was understanding how that technology lived in context of what else was out there and what the projected benefits and value would be. So our mission is straightforward. We want to accelerate the translation of diagnostics for disease prevention, detection, and treatment. And we'll accomplish this through 3 interconnected pillars: research with opportunities to provide services in radiology text analysis, combining those with pathology results, creating a cross-campus ecosystem for multidisciplinary teams and innovation, An evaluation of impact and value, not at the very end, but during the process of iterating. Oops, sorry, I think I clicked something wrong here. We want to think also about clinical translation. How are we going to, in the end, come together to make sure that we monitor those outcomes and ensure that the value is there? And together, all of our activities in partnership with New York Presbyterian, with our colleagues at Cornell, and many other collaborators across our health system, will create activities and a framework that support innovation from early development through clinical implementation. Luckily, we're at Columbia, and so I can't say how impressed I am with an organization that has strength across all of these major areas of healthcare outcomes research. And everyone's abilities, our scientific capabilities and knowledge can all serve to improve all of these areas as we evaluate technologies and also the outcomes consequent to using them. I also have to thank the ability to work with the most amazing colleagues. Sachin will speak after me. He's been in the department for a while now. He'll be director and associate director for imaging sciences and biomarkers in CADRe. I'm very thankful already for his close collaboration as we develop a backbone and infrastructure in terms of informatics, language processing abilities, extracting and integrating data. I can't say quite yet. We're very close to signing our next recruit, but he's focused in molecular and functional MRI. So in molecular MRI, I can explain very simply, is where we're not just producing the images, but really the biology that's at the heart of those images, looking at the tissue microenvironment, tissue pH, really remarkable innovations in MRI. I also want to say thank you already to the executive and steering committee members we've been working closely with. All of these members, many of you here today, have been extraordinarily supportive, using your really global leadership in your own areas respectively to help drive CADRe's purpose, help me strategize and think broadly. So thank you. And we have some core faculty members already. This is going to be a growing group, but Mike Dubrovin is a longtime Columbia nuclear medicine doctor and now is chief with our renamed Division of Molecular Imaging and Therapeutics. Mustafa Gaber, who's going to be the incoming director for research in molecular imaging and therapeutics. Hiram Sheish, also a longtime Columbia radiologist, who's going to help lead our oncologic imaging response efforts. And Tian Gu, who's abroad currently, but is just an outstanding biostatistician who I've already really enjoyed working with. I'm very fortunate to have met many wonderful collaborators, some of whom we've already submitted multiple grants together, so thank you for that. Chen, Betsy, Verna, Christine, Gerard. Ruth has been a mentor for many years to me, really since the beginning of my faculty career. All of these folks are, in their own right, tremendous investigators, and we will only grow in what we're doing. And in partnership with our PET Center and its capabilities for drug manufacturing, GMP production, FDA filings, right? Phase 3 evaluation of new therapeutics in the radiopharmacy space. We'll have even more exciting opportunities in the molecular imaging and therapy space to innovate together, bring in investigators from Columbia labs to consult on opportunities. And this is actually one of the areas I'm most excited about, to be able to announce that we'll have a joint pilot grant available in early 2027 with the Cancer Center to be able to encourage this environment, right, for consultation and evaluation for small peptides or molecules to be turned into targeted diagnostics and potentially therapies. At the MRI Center, we have tremendous numbers of studies going through and also opportunity to innovate with our industry partner, major industry partner, GE, and we'll welcome their remarks soon too this morning. Just one example of our translational infrastructure is the radiologic pathologic correlation. And I can't say how excited I am to be able to work with NYP and our team in building out these new systems in natural language processing. So diagnostics should be viewed as a translational science. We start with detection and take it all the way to outcomes. We use rigorous methods that only a place that's academic and strong in its medical presence can offer. And in the chain of technological evaluation, we know not just the right questions to ask with a theory of design and looking at these outcomes, but we can then quickly implement and evaluate, monitor, track, and make use of these outcomes so that these technologies can be brought to action. The future of medicine is not defined solely by how we will treat disease, but how early and accurately and meaningfully we understand it. And CADRe was established to help realize this future. So with that, I'll conclude, and I look forward very much to working with all of you to advance this next generation of diagnostics. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you again, Ajay, especially Stella and Despina. I'm fortunate and proud to be part of both of these centers, which Ajay and the team launched. And I'm excited for the algorithms which we develop in SIMBIT can be translated to the clinical world through CADRe. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we envision maybe as the digital backbone would be, and also how we would want our partnership to work with the medical center, the NYP, CUMC. This kind of endeavor requires partnership from all these entities, NYP IT, CUMC IT, for this big data, multimodal cohorts. We would need that. Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges, again, in radiology is we have lots of siloed data. We have imaging reports, also reports in multiple different platforms, from older platform, move to Epic. Sometimes they don't correlate, things like that. Large genomic database, large imaging database. How do we get them together or link them together as well? They might be on different platforms, but now pathology is also doing a lot of pathology slides, digitization, and there'll be an opportunity for us to collaborate with them to combine these kind of imaging path correlations as well. We have a lot of wonderful pipelines that we develop in our own labs, or even in SIMBIT, we have developed wonderful algorithms. But how do we translate that to the clinical end? And that's where CADRe would come into picture as to how we integrate that data back into our clinical platform, not as just Excel sheets with results, but with modern tools in terms of, if there is a segmentation mask, can we translate that back to the clinical platform for as an additional complementary information for a radiologist or for a person to look at, or analysis reports which could be added as a complementary information? How do we do that? And again, for that, the success depends upon how we collaborate with all our partners together in terms of NYP IT, CUMC IT, and also there's opportunity to apply our homegrown algorithms to vendor platforms. We have worked closely with GE as partners for quite a few years, and we have tools which we have integrated in their MR scanners as well. So there is opportunity there for us to do something like that on that end. And also the AI platforms which hospital is currently looking at or buying, we have opportunities there as well to integrate that. So trying to get these kind of tools back to either the scanner level or the PACS level, so that we could utilize them for clinical tasks, or also to have rigorous QA of that data. Yeah. So in short, CADRe can convert from one-off research things where we just publish a paper and get research results, can turn that into a more governed, versioned, validated clinical biomarker pipeline. That's what we envision to do. Governed data layer, again, in terms of DICOM data, de-identify. Last year, we started the Symbid platform, Symbid Center with our flywheel platform. So we have availability of de-identification, large-scale storage. So we will depend upon Symbid and leverage their infrastructure for some of these. Research compute layer, again, we have the flywheel platform and GPU containers and where you can containerize algorithms. One of the key aspects is, can we work with CMCIT and NYPIT to have these sandbox local LLM, VLMs, where we can test and validate our local algorithms for text de-identification, for some of these kind of models. And finally, a validation layer could be, again, with our industry partners, validation on the packs, validation with kind of these results sent back as DICOM SEG or some sort of more structured formats. This is what we envision, like define the clinical question. What are we trying to achieve? Like, could be a standardized platform for many of these kind of algorithms which can deploy through CADRe. The second part would be we will leverage with Symbid's expertise and Symbid's algorithms for that. Then reproducible model or biomarker, which can be validated on this kind of sandbox platform. And then it can be deployed and continuously monitored. Again, for a clinical deployment, we would need a continuous monitoring to be done in terms of domain shifts for some of these algorithms. Some of our older work where we did RAD and path analysis separately as algorithms, there is opportunity for, and again, these algorithms are sitting on the shelf, but it could be an opportunity for us to scale them and apply through CADRe ecosystem in terms of using these kind of LLMs, VLMs, and a backbone platform for RAD path correlation. Some of newer work where we have done some collaboration with BU on contrastive learning techniques, diffusion model-based synthetic MR data, things like that could be validated in a platform like or through a center like CADRe, and then disseminated. Some other biomarker work. So my biomarker hat, that's why I'm showing some of these biomarker things which we have done as a one-off research projects, but these could be really translated for clinical workflow or clinical speed up of the process. Some of these things can also be integrated, not just MR, but also at the ultrasound level. We have worked on transvaginal ultrasound image segmentation with a collaborator in mechanical engineering. So there are image data, there are tissue properties, and then EHR reports, trying to combine them together to create a segmentation model. The next step for this is to come up with a foundation model. We have collected around 30,000 cases currently, and we're working on a foundation model for that. Same thing from there's opportunity for us to scale up instead of individual analysis of radiological and pathological data, combining them together and working on risk prediction clinically would be beneficial. Again, with CADRe, CMCIT, NYPIT, and Symbid, we hope to have a pipeline system where we could provide these sandbox analysis platforms for people to work on clinically translational projects which can be utilized. With our industry partners, we can validate algorithms. With my physics hat, I'm thinking of QC for these kind of algorithms at the scanner level or the PACS level or continuous monitoring, things like that. So those are the additional things and tools we would need to think of as we try to come up with a pipeline to for multimodal translation. Again, what we need from all of you is high impact questions. We'll work with you with the curated data through SimVid, also trying to work with the IT partners to get these kind of sandbox LLMs and VLMs where we can test locally. And finally, yes, the main differentiator is that we are trying to create a backbone for clinical translational research where homegrown tools can also be integrated in our environment safely and securely for us to clinically validate. Any questions? Thank you.
I'll try to save a few minutes for questions from the audience after a couple more talks. Next, I am going to introduce Beth Percha, who's Chief Data and Analytics Officer at New York Presbyterian, that really is at least 3 jobs in one. So we've gotten to know Beth. Welcome.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. This is such an exciting day. I actually realized I apparently only have one blazer because I'm wearing the same blazer in the video and also in my profile picture, and I'm also wearing it now, so here you go. This is the green blazer. I just want to share a personal observation. So I spend a lot of time, I do have at least 3 jobs. A lot of time on hospital analytics. I run our IP office for NYP. We do our registries and regulatory reporting. A lot of stuff is going on. But I have a background as an academic researcher, and in my quieter moments, I spend a lot of time trying to think about how the hospital and health system can support brilliant people like Stella. It's probably the thing that I'm the most passionate about because I think we have more brilliant people per capita around here than almost anywhere in the world, and yet we still continue to hit up against this wall of great things being built and piloted and tested, and somehow it just never makes it all the way there. And it never makes it all the way into widespread deployment, consistent deployment at the health system, formal evaluation, a formal decision on whether we're using something or not, and just integration into all of our clinical practice. And I think so I keep trying to think about this because I think a lot of health systems struggle with this. And what can we offer as the hospital to people like Stella and Despina and others? And what I want us to target are basically 3 things. And it's the boring stuff: simplicity, consistency, and speed. I think that if Stella and the CADRe Center build some amazing new model and they come to me and they say, hey, we want to deploy this, my answer shouldn't be, okay, why don't you talk to these 6 people and try this over here, and maybe we'll integrate it back into Epic and file this IT PMO request, and that goes on for 6 months or a year or even longer. We should have an answer to that. It should be, okay, well, we have the data centralized in this model. We're going to deploy your thing this way. We might need to re-engineer it a little bit. We're going to put the output in this testing environment everybody can see and observe. We have a standard protocol for doing an evaluation on this type of tool that our team has designed centrally that the hospital is comfortable with. And then we're going to make the decision this way. And by the way, when it's running and productionized, we're also going to monitor it, and we'll have some kind of follow-up over time. And we can just do that a million times. And if we can get really good at that process, then we can beat everybody else out there. And so those are the kinds of questions that I'm obsessed with. I think it's early days on there, but a lot of that, frankly, has to do with goodwill and partnership as well, and workflow and consistency and all of these things. So I just want to share a few observations or a few things that we are working on that I'm really excited about that I think are most relevant to CADRe. And then I will put our meeting schedule for the data shared service, which I lead, up here at the end. You're all welcome to participate as much as you want. This is a coalition of the willing. First thing is, I have to call out, we are a very complicated place. So simplicity, consistency, and speed, if it's going to die anywhere, it'll die here. So we have to get really, really good at it. I lead what's called our data shared service. This is the second iteration of the shared Epic deployments that happened a few years back, where a set of financial and legal frameworks were developed that help the three institutions and their university partners work together. And so we have mechanisms for doing this, but as you can imagine, every time I hear something about a new center or a new idea, I think, how does this become tripartite? How can we make this work for everyone? How can this become part of a shared strategy? That's really challenging here and more challenging than other places. So the data shared service, the first thing we had to do when we set it up is, and again, it's still early days, these things take time, right? But we had to really clearly define what we wanted to be shared. Right? We don't necessarily want to be providing data for all research projects. The schools do that very well. Researchers have grants. They want to have their own research environments. They want copies of the data to do different stuff. I think all that's great. All we want to do is provide a common set of processes and mechanisms for deployment when it comes time for that crucial layer of translation. And so we are building a data platform. There's a technology component to this, and I'll share more about that. A lot of what we did to set this up was just completely restructure our teams, frankly, because it was a little bit of a soup in there of different analytics teams, data engineering teams working together. Nobody was sure who to go to. And so by creating a clearer structure around that, we've been able to build really great partnerships with other federated analytics teams at the hospital and the health system, and also our partners at the schools who are doing similar work. Just that simple change has made a huge difference in how the teams collaborate and work together and share knowledge. We also decided we wanted to commit to what we're calling R&D support. So we don't want the hospital doesn't see its role, and I don't see our role as doing the research itself in most cases, but we clearly have so much that's already been built or is in process, or there's great ideas out there at both schools. And we want to have this consistency about how we do the deployments, how we do the testing, how we bring it in, how we look at it, and frankly, we'll reject a lot of stuff. We want to get good at that. And then finally, there's a lot of work on my team that's just manual. So I have a 47-person registries and regulatory reporting team. They're doing all of our state and federal reporting, joint commission stuff. All of that is centralized as well. But the big thing there is we have this great data that they curate, and then it goes nowhere, right? We have these beautiful registries, and then how do researchers get access to them if they need them? We have over 50 registries. So we think about that a lot too. And then we have we run our research data services process, which is your beloved track and accord, and data literacy and visualization, which is a lot of outreach and kind of educating people about data. This is redundant, but it's just it's the vision for what we thought each of those pillars would do. So I'll say a little bit about the platform. You can't solve these problems with technology. And we could buy any suite of technology and call it our production stack, and that would be completely fine, I think. The key thing about this set of technology choices, though, is we made the decision together. We had a tripartite RFP. We sat down and we thought about all the problems that could happen. And one of the reasons we chose Snowflake, although it's expensive, it's a cloud platform, it's a managed cloud platform. One of the reasons we chose it is because you can have separate environments for each of the three institutions that they control, and data can be shared without copying it in a very, very well-governed and specific way among those instances. That allows us to operate as the three different institutions that we are, but also have a common data model and work on data engineering together in a way that's maximally productive. So as we have, one of the things that keeps coming up in our NLP working group, and I'm looking at Karthik back there, is that we'll find that, at Columbia, we've developed an NLP pipeline for cancer staging. By the way, at Cornell, we did the same thing using a different stack. Right? We want to be able to bring those things together and have that shared kind of that data model that grows over time, where we're extracting information from text and we're augmenting the data model with patient cohorts, and have that be available to everyone. At the same time, we want Columbia and Cornell to be able to manage their own HR and financial data in a way that's compliant and that's important to everyone. So I can talk more about this to anyone who's interested. The platform will contain over 300 unique data sources. We're focused on structured operational data for the first year. We're really trying to get our Epic pipelines right now. The official build kicks off in July, but we've already done a ton of work and several connectors have already been built. A few weeks ago, we got, for example, our Philips Vitals data in at 15-minute intervals. That allows us to do things like for our brilliant neurointensivist researcher, Sujin Park up at Columbia, who's built predictive algorithms for patient deterioration on real-time vitals data, who does that in data that's loaded in batch in Azure and is not real-time. We can start to make that real-time and deploy it clinically. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm passionate about and I want this team to support. again, this is just details on the whole platform build. Obviously, this will evolve over time, and we welcome kind of suggestions or teams that are technically capable who want to be part of the build can get trained and actually join our data engineering team. The data engineering team today is tripartite. We have folks from all three institutions working collaboratively on that project. A couple of areas where I think we can really benefit CADRe and where CADRe can benefit us. One is on the clinical NLP front. I'm actually a clinical NLP researcher by training. I did my PhD in biomedical natural language processing, and this is an article I wrote several years ago around natural language inference for registry curation, obviously foreshadowing the fact that I'd have a team that's curating over 50 registries. And one of the things that has happened in the last few years is, as of 2021, you could apply state-of-the-art clinical NLP technology to text, and it was very lackluster, frankly. You could label stuff, you could say whether it was a drug or something, you could maybe normalize it to a term, but you couldn't do inference on that text. And now with LLMs, you can. This is a fake progress note that I had a doctor friend write as part of a review article, and I fed that thing to ChatGPT like a year ago, and I was asking all sorts of questions about that patient. You could extract that structured information. So we've invested in NLP pipelines, which are allowing us to do that in a consistent way for lots of different tasks. I think this is going to be one of the main benefits of the platform, is you can just say, I need to get social determinants of health. Here's my prompt. Please go run this as cheaply as you can using whatever model on all of our clinical notes and put the output in the platform, and then give me the segment that's relevant to me. We should be able to turn that crank super fast. The interesting thing about this is that Karthik and his team, which is a tripartite team that lead this work, a lot of the infrastructure had already been built. A lot of thinking had been done about this. Where had it been done? At Columbia. And so in this case, we're taking that and we're migrating it to Snowflake. We're taking the best parts of that, and we're using modern architecture, and we're going to make that thinking available to all three institutions through the common platform. So that's an example. I just think there's so many things like that where you have work that's been done that could be fruitful for so many purposes, yet we insist on recapitulating it in so many different places throughout our institutions. Another kind of illustration of where I think this will benefit kind of the approach of CADRe, although it's in a different domain, is in cardiology. NYP has invested in teams at both Columbia and Cornell that do cardiovascular AI research. And what we had found was that we had built these pipelines, but actually we were sort of fielding data requests from both sides in very inefficient ways and just sending off this data set and that data set. Stuff was getting built here and there. And so every time somebody wanted to try a new project, it was the same amount of work for the team. And so what the team has invested in is consolidating some of these pipelines. So this, I grayed out the model names because it doesn't matter, but you get the idea, right? What's happening is we've got two different models that are using ECGs for prediction and echoes, and we need metadata from both of them, and we need the images. And what we did was we just consolidated those pipelines so we can run those models, and it doesn't require any new work or new pipelines to be built for the second model. So now if someone else wants to come in and try some new outcome with an echo or an ECG, we have the data prepared for them. We also have the clinical data, metadata prepared for them, and that deployment process becomes a lot faster. So I really believe that we're in a world where we're going to want to iterate, and we're going to want to make it it's becoming commoditized, right? Some of the technologies for building and training AI models. We're going to be wanting to turn the crank on that so much faster than we are today to remain competitive. And this is one of the approaches that will help with that. So imagine that Stella and Despina make a similar design or work with our team to design the pipelines for radiology, for pathology, and we can get consistent on that. Then new ideas become so much faster to test. A third area that I've worked on, which again, I did not know was part of my job description when I started here, is AI governance. So we actually, for a while, could not approve any AI contracts because we didn't have an AI governance process in place. And that was becoming really problematic because everyone and their brother around here wants to do something with AI. And so we set up, but the problem is we really were principled about wanting to test every single AI or at least evaluate every single new AI product that comes through the health system. And so to do that with such a large volume required us to get very specific about how we were going to look at those technologies. And so this is just an example of where I think this intersects with CADRe is you're going to be producing a lot of stuff. And when you want to deploy it, we want to be fast about what we're telling you need to do and the hoops you need to jump through to get it deployed and get it tested. And so we're doing this now for a lot of vended technologies and also homegrown technologies throughout our health system. What we did was we identified, we have a PMO process already that looks at things like InfoSec and all of these other aspects of a new technology. For AI, most of those are not new. So we don't want to repeat the same process for AI technologies separately. What we did was we identified the new risks from AI, which have to do with the use of data and training, the introduction of a decision-making technology that could function as a black box between the physician and the patient, so that introduces a risk, and then the unique regulatory risks for AI. We really whittled that down, and we built a process that just looks at those things and adds on to the other process. So that's just an example of how we simplified that to make it possible to get that AI governance running again. We also are partnering with a technology company called Signal One, which is a startup building an AI management system, because I believe there's no way we're going to be able to govern all this stuff without having a commercial solution with a single registry where non-technical people can look and see how the models are running. So we're co-developing this product with them, but our goal is by the end of this year to have every single AI product at our health system monitored so that it becomes really easy to say, okay, you have a new imaging thing. It looks kind of like this other product that we're monitoring in this way. So let's just put it in the registry, and then the monitoring and everything will, the default will be just do it exactly the same way. Then you're not faced with years of process trying to design evals and things like that. We've been able to make a graph of, this is just for fun. I just wanted to show you as of December, the suite of technologies that had come through and kind of where they are in the health system. We have a lot of AI around here. What's happening is existing vendors are building AI features into their products. A lot of things are even in business processes, not directly related to patient care. So we really need to get good and consistent and efficient at evaluating these. You're sensing a theme, right? And then finally, this was just one of the evaluations our team did. What happens is when a technology comes through the AI governance process and we deem it of sufficiently high risk, we'll actually do a formal statistical evaluation. And we have a team within the data shared service that does those evals and designs them that have biostatistical expertise. And the other nice thing about that is that team is also tripartite. So folks, we've been able to harvest the biostats expertise at both schools to assist in that work. This was just one of the evaluations that was done for our ambient scribe in its initial pilot, that found some interesting findings about physician use and about time saved, and that's informing the design of future pilots. And again, we want to get faster and faster at this. So there are areas that we're focused on within the shared service now, are cardiology, women's health, and we have an NLP working group, emergency medicine and capacity management, acute care, and healthcare delivery and evaluation is the group that does the AI evals. I will tell you that this is not particularly formal. I have no interest in controlling all of this. I don't think a single structure can control it. It's really a coalition of the willing, people who meet weekly, they present on their work, and we try to think about how we can start to deploy some of these models within the platform and in a consistent way that will help make it easier to test. This was the source of our decision to prioritize the Philips Vitals data to support Sujan's work. We never would have known that that was an issue if we hadn't had that conversation in this forum. So anyway, if any of you are interested in becoming part of DSS, or you want to, you have a pitch, or you have something you think we can do as a shared team that will help improve your particular situation, or some nuance of this that I'm not seeing, I really encourage you to reach out to me. As you know, NYP has secret emails, so please just write that one down. It has no resemblance to my actual name. And then I'm very controlling of the invites to these meetings, but if you are genuinely serious about wanting to collaborate with us, you're more than welcome to join. We have a group of over 200 people that meet every Friday. We do presentations and we provide updates on the data platform. I'm so excited to be working with you, Stella. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm excited for the future, and I hope that we can make some great stuff happen here. So thanks.
Thank you, Beth. That was an incredible update on everything that we're doing. Next, we have a pair of talks. And first, we'll have our Chief Executive Presence from GE. Katrine has recently taken on a more global role. So it is such pride that I have to be able to have you here join us today to give us some ideas of how you think and how GE thinks about global strategy.
Thank you and good morning, everybody. This is so exciting, for us to be here. And your presentation, Beth, if I may call you Beth, was amazing as well, and so aligned with some of the investment that we are making and that Parry will talk about during the panel. So my name is Catherine Estrompe, and I lead the global markets for GE Healthcare, which is really all the regions in the world, with the exception of China. So ahead of the presentation of my colleague attending the AI panel later on, this morning, I really wanted to frame a little bit our discussion, this morning around transforming healthcare deliveries through strategic innovation and partnership. So partnership with the industry. And one thing that has been striking me is that research, I know it's going to sound obvious to all the people here, research drives medical progress. It has always done. And but to me, it is increasingly treated as a luxury, if you think about it, or as something that we have to defend, collectively. Reimbursement cuts, NIH funds, a decrease, you name it. Yet the radiology greatest advances from MR to AI, etc., were born from the research by academic centers, and certainly born from the research that someone decided to support and took a risk on, and ask to do more with less. That's what you are facing today, is to do more with less. Funding has been cut, and medtech and healthcare industry together, we are experiencing a global volatility. So against this backdrop, the question that we are asking ourselves really is not whether research matters, because it matters, and we're going to talk about further about collaboration today here. We have a long-standing collaboration with Colombia. But it's really, because it clearly does, but it's really how do we together ensure that it does not only survive, but it thrives in the new environment. You might know, healthcare is a $9 trillion market for the industry, and it grows at about 5% annually. And it is a place where innovation is going to matter increasingly. We have a long legacy of partnership with and collaborative innovation with the academics. And we have a clarity of purpose, with all of you. So I think that this moment, and this morning is one of them, calls really for a more profound and a more sophisticated thinking about research, economics, partnership between the industry and academics, and new ways of thinking about research. The reason why I really loved Beth's presentation before is that because we believe there is a huge opportunity for collaboration in the AI world and in the AI development world, whether it is for clinical purposes or whether it is for operational purposes, workflow efficiencies, etc. And so we believe that there is grants that will be available, that there is huge collaboration worldwide opportunities. So that's a little bit to set the context. I won't bore you too long, with that, but I thought that maybe for those of you who don't know us, very well, we have extensive reach throughout, the world. We are a global healthcare, company, and we are really positioned around medical technology, solutions, pharma, and digital, solutions. We are very proud of the fact that each year we basically serve 1 billion patients. And support about 2 billion procedures. We are very proud of that. And our install base really is 5 million pieces of equipment that span really imaging, interventional, ultrasound, etc., and patient care solution. And that's really serving that purpose of creating a world where healthcare has no limit. So that global reach to actually support that. So that's how we look globally. And it's really, we serve 160 countries and their patients for the past 100 years now. And basically really, focused or increasingly focused on a more personalized, on a more connected, and frankly, a more compassionate care, especially as you get out of the United States, where the access, to care is so dire. And it's really focusing on the patient, journey through the different care pathways. We recently, as Stella, mentioned, we recently brought together imaging, which, for us is MR, CT, molecular imaging, etc. And we brought it, together with ultrasound and interventional cardiology and interventional radiology. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. But the reason, behind that is simple and complex at the same time. But it's simple when we observe how our clinician partners are increasingly, working. So if you look at the end of April, so 2-3 weeks ago now, we basically announced the creation of advanced imaging solutions, which is the combination of the imaging P&L, and the ultrasound and interventional vascular and interventional cardiology in a P&L. And why did we do that? We did that because we realized that while in our company we were still organized around silos, the MR silo, the CT silo, the ultrasound silo, our clinical partners are now functioning in a very different way. And what you are looking for, what they are looking for, is integrated imaging solutions. Ultrasound and CT images fused, ultrasound in a structural heart lab, and on and on. So more and more integrated solutions with the support of digital as well. And as opposed to the way we had been thinking about it for many, many years, which was imaging as a discrete step, as a discrete number of steps in the patient journey. So it's really our ambition with that new organization from a technology perspective is to really provide that more connected path, if you would like, for the patient, from screening to confirmation of the diagnostic, to therapy, to intervention, to monitoring of the impact of the targeted therapies, to monitoring of the patient post therapy. So that's the advanced imaging solution. The patient care solution may be less relevant here, but it's really about the medical devices which are really focused on, and services which are really focused on digital solutions to capture a number of data in patient monitoring, in diagnostic cardiology, etc., to provide that digital 360 view of the patient in the urgent care. You are well aware of our PDX, or pharmaceutical diagnostic, very well known for the contrast media, but playing an increasing role in the molecular imaging agent to support imaging, whether at the screening time or at the confirmation of the therapy impact. And then below, you see two regions. So that's the second organization that we decided to make. We basically merged US and Canada, which I used to lead until 2 weeks ago, with the international region, which is the rest of the world, with the exception of China. And why did we do that? This is the observation that care protocols, disease management, ways academics collaborate worldwide, ways healthcare system increasingly collaborate worldwide, was really an opportunity for us to scale what can be best from an enterprise perspective, from a collaboration perspective as well, see how we can align in this big global market region, collaborations with academic, collaboration around enterprise projects, and make sure that we are scaling not only the technology aspect, but also scaling the best practices within our company to support our customers. And again, that includes the collaboration area, which I know we are doing a lot with you already. So this is really in support of accelerating our precision care strategy, which we have coined our D3 strategy, which is really centered around emphasis on smart and interoperable devices that include AI. Each one of our technologies is AI powered. The second D is really disease states. How do we take those technologies and how do we make sure that they are connected? And the digital and AI piece is a very important one, that they are connected around the patient journey. So think about prostate cancer or breast cancer as an example. How do we connect our technologies from early screening to confirmation of the diagnostic to therapy monitoring? And some of the acquisitions we made are actually in line with this care pathway. And then digital and AI, which Pari will talk about on the panel, huge investment on our side, because again, we absolutely believe in collaborating in the ecosystem with academics like yours to make sure that we are deploying trustworthy and reliable AI solutions. So this is what we have accomplished over the past, I want to say 3 years now, since we split from the mothership. So this is an alignment of our capital allocation to our precision care strategy. Lots of investment in R&D. So we have added $5 billion of R&D investment over the past 3 years. And we have also collaborated with the NIH, we have collaborated with HARPA, etc., to really fuel that innovation from a technology solutions perspective. We have also focused on making purposeful acquisitions that are aligned to our precision care. So we have made 8, soon 9 acquisitions. But if you think about what I just said, MIM is an acquisition in dosimetry that we made about 18 months ago now, and it is really a central piece to our care pathway on the oncology side. But we also realized that they had developed some very excellent tools when it comes to cardiology or when it comes to neuro. So it's how do we integrate them into our platform, into our technology platforms. IntelRad is an acquisition that we closed recently as well. And here the purpose is different. The purpose here is realizing that when we think about our clients in the future, we believe that having great technology is going to be table stakes, and that more and more of the capital allocation is going to be around AI, digital, and workflows, and improving workflows and improving efficiencies. So this acquisition of IntelRad, they are well-known, and some of you might be using them. They are a well-known cloud PACS company that has been focusing mostly on outpatient imaging and the outpatient centers. And why this is important, to us is that because we are seeing the shift or the addition, including in academics, of ambulatory centers, ambulatory services, and so the need to really connect our cloud PACS for inpatient solution with IntelRad that is more focused on the outpatient centers. And why this is important is that because we want to offer that enterprise cloud PACS system with the opportunity to hang AI applications on top of it. So these are some of the acquisitions that we recently made. And then we, of course, we have about 200 strategic collaboration. I would be remiss if I would not mention this audience and Colombia. We have great collaboration in MR. I know that we are looking at some additional projects, and we're going to talk about that today, but that's so collaboration for us in the ecosystem is important, because we do believe that nobody, not one company and not one healthcare system or not one academic by themselves can resolve all of the issues in front of us. So this is my last slide, and not to go into the details either here, but that's basically 3 examples of how we have aligned, how we have applied our R&D spending to purposeful innovation. So during RSNA last year, and it got FDA approved recently, we introduced a new generation of photon counting. And it's really about removing the compromise between details and insights, for lack of a better word. We also focus very much on neuro with the Signa Magnus, which is a dedicated neuro magnet, and really extremely focused on neurosciences department. We already have several deployed, and looking as well for collaborations in that area. And then in the mammography world, it's the Pristina Recon DL, which is really 3D mammography with the support of AI and the digital. So this is just to give you a very high level view of our company, where we are investing. I'll close by really saying that most of you know us as a premium imaging company, as a high-tech imaging company. That is true, and that is what we want to continue to invest in, hence the $5 billion. And what we are striving at becoming, our ambition is to really become a healthcare solutions company, and digital and AI will have a huge component of that vision. So we have the cash to apply to innovation and to R&D, and we are thrilled to be collaborating in the ecosystem with institutions like yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Carrying on this theme about GE's movement in the AI space, we now have Parminder Bhatia, who's our Chief AI Officer.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me here. So let's get ready for next 3 hours of sessions on AI. Just kidding, super excited to be here. Hey everyone, this is Parminder Bhatia, I also go by the name Parry, Chief AI Officer at GE Healthcare. Super excited to be here, a lot of great topics that we talked about. And one of the key areas that I wanted to kind of for all of you to take away from the next 15 minutes is not just about AI and AI with impressive models. We're already there, I would say, in a lot of those places. But one of the key ingredients is how do you translate that? And that is where you take those isolated systems to connected care, going from reactive to proactive systems as well. So that will be the theme that I'll talk about. We'll talk about a lot of areas on how collaborations and strategic partnerships, not just in theory, but how do we take those in action? And that's one of the key areas that I would like to drive today as well. We'll briefly start with the challenges, and all the audience here knows about this, but just to ground everyone, like when we think about AI, these are the 4 verticals that we look into. And when we're looking into any of the AI investment, it has to hit in one of those 4 verticals as well. So when you think about like major challenges, which is workflow friction or shortages, we looked into some of the examples of how does integration with Epic and others like really make it harder. So how do we make the workflow easier, whether it's with PACS or your EHRs as well? So workflow friction is one of the key challenges. Then that's this, the second is around the clinician burnout. The third is access to care, and fourth is cost of care. All of those might seem independent, but they're actually related and connected in multiple ways as well. Your workflow friction actually leads to clinician burnout, where they have to go through multiple screens, multiple systems to get to the right data. That actually translates to having less capacity or over-constrained staff, which means you have to kind of prioritize that with increasing costs. And that also kind of enables or actually increases cost of care as well. So when you look into solving these problems, most of the times it is about how do you create ecosystem that can go across all of those 4 verticals. And in some of the investments that we have made across last 10 years journey, so as Catherine talked about, we have been building AI, machine learning, deep learning for more than a decade with the highest number of FDA-approved app authorizations. One of the key areas where we have seen success is when we hit all of these 4 verticals as well. So that's an area I'll talk about more in details as well. Going into the radiology centers as well, in last 10 years, I think like there's a lot of discussions around where AI, how does it get integrated? Is it going to be useful? What does it mean from like enhancing care versus like adding more tools as well? But broadly, if you think about the problems, like in last 10 years, you've actually seen 80% growth in United States into the workload for radiologists. The increase in the staff has been 10%. And that is already where you were seeing constraints. So you're talking about in last 10 years, we started from not a position of strength. It was already constrained. It's become even more constrained. And the challenge is going to become even more harder with more and more of data coming into that place as well. And then that kind of brings to the second end of the problem, where healthcare generates about 1/3 of world's data. So to put it into some context, if we had to digitalize this data across the globe, all the libraries that are there in the globe, we would have to really replicate that process 3.5 billion times to get to that data. And 97% of that is unstructured. So imagine on one side, the amount of data that gets generated, and on the other side, the amount that is not used. We're making most of the clinical decisions at 3% of the data. So when you think about AI, one of the things that we might want to start thinking is diagnostics, it helps, but how can it be brought across the value chain? Because that's where you would see more value, whether it's in early detection, whether it's in treatment, but actually as a connected system as well. And that's where we'll kind of go briefly around those areas as well. So you looked into shortage constraints, you're looking into the data that's increasing. It's going to increase more with more variables, more devices as well. So you have this device, now it's going to generate more and more data. So how do we think about the future where on one side you're seeing constraints, on one side you're going to see a lot more amount of data that gets generated, and on the other side, how do you solve those problems? Frankly, there is an unlock, and that has happened more in last 5 years or last 3 years. I would say, and it has not been just last 3 years, it's been the culmination of a lot of technologies that were getting built out over, I would say, more than a decade. The first one, and there were some discussions, and I'll go more in details around foundation models. Healthcare is multimodal. So one of the key challenges is when you're trying to solve problems, in the last 10 years, we have seen more isolated or standoff systems, which look into whether it's just the imaging data or the pathology data or the EHR data. But as a radiologist, as a physician, you're looking into multimodal data, right? You're looking into data that comes from multiple places as well. So that's where some of these technologies are really going to be revolutionary, because they were multimodal in nature. When ChatGPT came out, there was a lot of discussions around large language model, but it wasn't language model. The technology inherently was multimodal, and that really transforms the technology in a lot of places as well. The second piece is around how do you combine those things together? There's been a lot of work around orchestration in last 10 years in healthcare and radiology as well. Think of agentic AI as a massive orchestration system that can really make systems connect seamlessly with human in the loop with all the guardrails as well. It's not about with agents, everything is going to get automated. It's going to help streamline those different care pathways in a way more seamless way. And we'll talk about some of the examples later in the talk about that as well. And then how do you take those technologies into reality, into the hands of different devices as well? That's where physical and embodied AI becomes useful as well. And all three components are actually connected. You can build a lot of great AI multimodal capabilities with foundation models way faster than any time in the past. You can orchestrate them across any care pathways faster than any time in the past. And then you can bring it out into the devices or into the end use cases. And that's where physical AI becomes important as well. So for today's talk, as I said, I don't have 3 hours. So we'll basically ground our discussion around foundation models. We'll talk about how it is getting used. We'll talk about some of the collaborations. And from G Healthcare, how we are partnering with a lot of academic centers to really define the workflows end to end, going from point solutions to really redefining the workflows as well. So when we talk about foundation models, one of the analogies I use is with iPhone quite a bit. So when iPhone came out 15 years back, it wasn't just iPhone. It was a platform that brought your entertainment system, cameras, everything together in a lot of ways as well. And when I think about foundation models, it's the same on how it can bring a lot of these technologies, point processes together across multiple areas. So if you have to look back, what's been the challenge? We made a lot of progress with AI machine learning, but when we think about that, has it seen its scale in healthcare compared to other industries? We see our financial data getting personalized, your e-commerce, you're able to order the gift for your spouse in just 1 or 2 clicks as well. Has that same transformation happened in healthcare? The answer is, to some extent, yes, but not to the extent that we would want. And it's partly with 3 main reasons. Firstly, healthcare has a lot of customizations, which means you have limited domain data that might be available. And now to customize models, whether it's to go from one, like let's say we have to go from X-ray to MR or to go from brain to knee, it requires a lot of customization in that space as well. It's not one click that can go from one place to another. The second thing which I talked about is multimodal nature. A lot of these technologies are not just looking into imaging data or the unstructured data or looking into the gene sequencing data. It is actually multimodal data that needs to be brought together. And that's where with traditional AI, you would look into one component of a problem that will solve a problem, but it won't solve end-to-end problem in that space as well. And lastly, and some of the things kind of were alluded in some ways as well. When you think about a lot of these point solutions, imagine the burden that comes on IT teams. Every time you have to integrate those systems, it takes a lot of lift across the board. And now when you have to change those, it becomes even harder in that space as well. So when you have hundreds of algorithms that need to be coordinated, orchestrated, it can be a nightmare for IT teams. It can be expensive, but also hard to manage as well. And that's where, while we've seen a lot of promise coming out with some of these technologies, we haven't seen that penetration that we would have expected in healthcare. And then that's where foundation models come into the place as well. So as I talked about with ChatGPT and some of these technologies coming out, firstly, creating these technologies are multimodal in nature, which means they can adapt, learn from multiple signals. And we'll talk about some of those later across, and it could come from your EHR data, your text data, it could be your imaging data, your pathology data, and bringing all of those data sets together and customizing for multiple use cases. So over here, an example, in the past, you would require 4 different models for detection, segmentation, measurement, but you can have, now with foundation models, you can have one backbone that can go end-to-end across multiple use cases. What we have seen with some of the clinical and research partnerships is the amount of data required to do that is 5 to 10%. Like getting data, annotating data is one of the bottlenecks in a lot of research or innovation that we want to do. You can actually accelerate that with way less data to customize for your use cases. Then the focus goes more on validation versus building the model. And that's where it becomes a key ingredient in that space as well. These technologies are multimodal, which means it can go from text to image, image to text. So really streamlining and orchestrating workflows on how the clinical workflows work in today's world as well. And lastly, from the IT standpoint as well, because they can adapt across multiple use cases. Now, instead of having 100 different models, you could have 1 or 2 that can orchestrate across multiple scenarios. So in long run, it actually reduces the cost because managing 100 models versus managing 1 or few that can orchestrate across the board reduces your cost as you go into that space. And at G Healthcare, we have been at the forefront over last 3 years in early building of a lot of these technologies. So for instance, we have industry's first full body X-ray model. We have one of the first 3D MR foundation model. And all of these technologies are multimodal in nature, which means they can understand images, they can understand text, they can go from image to text, and they've been built in to incorporate more things like pathology and others as well. And that's where a lot of research is happening into that space as well. And same thing goes for ultrasound as well. So that came out as one of the first models, which is Sonosam, which was ultrasound segmentation model about 3 years back. And the advantage of some of these is adaptability. So we talked about how can, in one of the earlier talks, ultrasound be used for fetal or maternal care. This model was never trained on that data. But when it was evaluated off the shelf, it had 90 plus DIE score. So imagine you're trying to create an application, you're already starting at 90 plus. So now to take from 90 to 95, it's a huge lift versus starting from ground up in a lot of those areas. We have seen in other cases where training a model where in the past, if you would require 2,000 studies, now with 200 studies, you get to the same or even better accuracy. So that's the paradigm shift of a lot of these technologies as they're coming into that space as well. Now moving on to, I'll briefly talk about how AI has been integrated at G Healthcare as well. So we looked into those 4 verticals. So anytime when we are trying to do AI, it has to hit at least one, if not all of those 4 areas: access to care, reducing burnout, improving workflow efficiencies, and across the board as well. So this is an example of how AI is embedded into our handheld ultrasound. So now when you think from sonographer perspective, how do you bring sonographer with 1 year experience and 15-year experience on the same level field? That's where these AI guided technologies really help. So it was used in cardiac ultrasound. The advantage of these technologies is like it's able to nudge and provide inputs to the sonographers, and even it can go to primary care on how to take ultrasound and take a scan. It also saves the best clip across the board. So as you are scanning and scrolling through, it'll save the best clip, but you can always decide with human in the loop if you want to get a better scan out of that as well. And that is huge implication. Like if we think about early access or taking it into remote places, and one of the studies we did was like with about 1,800 to 2,000 patients with kind of abnormalities detected, we were able to identify patients who could have heart failure 50% with more accuracy and increasing the spread as well. And that's where these technologies really empower access, where it would not have been possible if the right level of expertise was not provided in these cases. And then there are multiple examples of like when we look across those 4 verticals, like we talked about ultrasound and providing this co-pilot kind of experience, which gives you move a little left, move a little right. Now you have a good diagnostic quality image. It goes into triaging use cases, like in pneumothorax, like we have algorithms that are integrated into our devices for emergency care. We've actually seen they have higher AUC. Like one of them we found was like having 14 to 15% better AUC when it's actually able to help prioritize the patients that need to be looked from care standpoint as well. So that was one of the another example. So as Catherine talked about, we're thinking about the enterprise scale. The other example is how do we really streamline patient flow across the hospital. So the last example was actually with Queen's Health Systems in Hawaii, where in just a matter of 1 year, we were able to reduce length of stay by a day. We were able to really streamline and reduce the reduction of ED admit length of stay, as well as decrease the onboarding time, which eventually translated to 20 million saving in just a matter of 1 year as well. So those are some of the transformative technologies, and we're just getting started. And that's where some of the exciting things come in that space as well. Now, we talked about a lot of these solutions, and this is something we've been building. Now, how do we think about end-to-end workflow? And this is where it becomes really exciting with foundation models when we're thinking about multiple kind of data coming in. When we build these horizontal capabilities, it's not just about better diagnosis. It's not just about better acquisition. The end goal is how do we reduce time to report? That's how we think from our standpoint. How can we help radiologists reduce time to report? So that's the North Star, which is the final thing that comes out, which is reporting and communication. And then everything flows backwards from that. How can we bring the right set of assistants in our packs? So as Catherine talked about, like Interlad, going into outpatient, inpatient, how do we bring in more agentic AI capabilities over there? Clinical intelligence, how do we bring in more and more clinical apps that can really help identify those things, whether we're looking into Alzheimer's or we're looking into oncology. So bringing those capabilities out. The third is a lot of device image reconstruction and kind of image quality. So we have technologies like AirRecon DL, which has gone through more than 80 million scans across the globe. So it's not just a technology that is there, but it's actually used in production. 5,000 plus scans. It has 60 plus publications that have gone with just one technology. So that's a lot of the areas where we've made a lot of investment and continue to expand those capabilities as well. Going into physical AI, autonomous acquisition, can we reduce the experience as the scans are done? Can we reduce the rescans that might be required to really improve the flow end to end as well? And then looking broadly at the hospital operation standpoint, whether we're looking, is the scanner going to be free? When the patient needs to be prioritized? How do we look into a lot of these things that requires bringing multimodal data together? So when we think about AI, it's not just about point solutions. How do we think end to end? And bringing those solutions together with our partners is one of the key areas. And this kind of gives an example in the Alzheimer's case as well, where it's not just about the diagnosis, like with, especially now, as we are looking with ARIA use cases as well, it's more about monitoring, getting continuous scans across the board as well. So again, going from that same stack, how do you look into reporting as the end goal? And then looking into the radiology workflow, how do we bring in clinical intelligence? So that's where we have a lot of longitudinal AI capabilities now with IcoBrain, ARIA, and DM technologies that have come out more on the clinical decision support. Going a step below, gave an example of air recon DL. We have same things in other areas, like going from brain, if you want to go into cardiac, that's where sonic DL comes in. So a lot of reconstruction technologies in that space. Autonomous acquisition, how do we make sure our devices are smarter as more and more AI and technology gets integrated? And then coordination, whether it's with protocols, looking into care pathway coordination, bringing it end to end as well. Now, the beauty of a lot of these technologies that we talked about is a lot of these are connected. So in the past, we've thought of these as isolated systems, like think of reporting as separate, think of reconstruction as separate, but they're actually feeding on top of each other. So you can optimize on one part, but if you have a bottleneck in any of these, your output will stay the same. And that's where we might want to think about how AI and AI evolution comes out. Now, if I have to look into the same lens from MR to CT, and that is where it comes on now. Now, if I have to look into lung follow-ups as well, the same technology or technology stack we look from MR standpoint can be applied in the case of CT follow-ups as well. And the components can change or vary slightly as well. So it's not doesn't need to be one-to-one mapping, but the whole idea is as you build these horizontal capabilities, you can really scale across, going from Alzheimer's to lung follow-up or screening use cases as well, and end-to-end workflow integrations as well. I know we are at time, so I'll spend last 5 minutes on the collaborations and how we partner. And that's where I'm looking forward to discussions today and beyond as well. So want to talk about like how we think about collaborations. So there are these two areas or circles that we think about when we are talking about collaborations. A lot of these technologies have been built with our clinical partners, working with them end to end in mind as well. So first phase, a lot of it is around ideation, identifying what could be the right solution, validating that, creating small POCs, making sure is it aligned with the use case, and going through that cycle end to end as well. And that's where sometimes it is around like collecting evaluation data sets or understanding where the problem needs to be solved into as well. Then we start to go into, we'll talk about that, how we think about that end-to-end governance. So we talked about governance and why it's important. So going from 30 to 120 FDA algorithms in last 3 years, it required a lot of governance across the board. So happy to share thoughts on how we have really scaled that capability as well. But then looking into adoption, iteration, how do we iterate on these technologies as well? When I talked about Air Recon DL, now it's gone through its 4th version. So it's not just about first bringing in technology, but how do you continuously iterate on behalf of your customers as you're going into these different areas? And this is where it's a most important area where we see pilots actually stall. So we have seen success. We've also seen areas where it's not been useful. And it comes down to 5 different areas where, like, first is like, is the clinical problem rightly defined or not? So making sure the data that is required, do you have that? Can you trace that? Do you have the governance around that? Making sure the ground truth data is actually reusable, that can be used across multiple areas as well. And it is actually tested into the workflow as well. One of the examples was actually like going from radiology into labor and delivery. So we initially launched Care Intellect for perinatal. It was built at HCA. It was reviewed with 1,000+ clinicians' feedback. So that's where, so you can build one of the best technologies, but it is not integrated, it's not going to get adopted. So that's where technology is built with our partners to make sure it is prime time ready. Building an AI algorithm is usually now 10 to 15% of the time. 80 to 85% goes into validation, multi-site validation, to make sure it's prime time ready for the scale and adoption as well. And this is our governance chart. I won't spend too much time, but that's the armory you need to think about. Like, you have data management. How do you create data traceability, making sure there's no bias across those, making sure there's human oversight, continuous labeling with the experts coming out, and then monitoring and change control as these technologies come out into that space, not just as one-off deployment, but post-model monitoring as well. And that's becoming more and more important as these technologies are becoming more and more adaptive. They can scale across multiple areas. Now I'll end with a couple of examples. So we talked about the MR stack, and we have a couple of areas or examples of how we are partnering, not just like thinking of MR or the foundation models from the clinical standpoint, but end-to-end workflow, whether it's operational or clinical. So we leverage the same MR foundation model that we talked about, applied it into 2 to 3 use cases, whether it's operational and clinical, to see how it can be adapted across multiple use cases. And we've had a couple of publications on this in ISMRM for this year as well. So happy to share those papers as well. And what we found was this was used in the operational use case by Medicine on understanding, does the MR has contrast recognition, looking into things like organ segmentation, organ detection, looking into other areas that might be required from the operational standpoint over here as well. And what we found was like the model was able to get to, in a lot of those cases, 97 to 99% accuracy. It was done with 10x less amount of time required to train traditional models as well. So the acceleration is huge in a lot of these areas, and happy to share papers around that as well. But that's the advantage, and that's where translation becomes important. We got really good feedback on what the next generation of capabilities in the foundation model should have. Maybe you should have more data on pathology, making it multimodal. So having that feedback also helps to improve the common backbone into that space. Now, the same case was applied into the clinical use case, where we looked into, can we use one backbone end-to-end for a complex case like prostate cancer? So that requires understanding a lot of areas, from lesion categorization, segmentation, measurement, and even to reporting. And what we found in early results, just with segmentation and measurement, the model was able to get to 95% AUROC, and now it's getting expanded end-to-end towards reporting and other scenarios as well. So that's the advantage of these technologies. Now, the same backbone that we talked about, we looked into from the operational standpoint, we looked into from the clinical standpoint. In fact, we are also having discussions here with a couple of PIs on how the same MR foundation model can be applied in collaboration across multiple scenarios as well. So that's the advantage of some of these technologies. Now, the same backbone can be applied across multiple scenarios. And then it's not just about model. Another area that we have to look into is like, a lot of these radiology technologies require visualization. So this is where we also have our suite of visualization tools. We call that Imaging Fabric, that is used to power a lot of our current end applications as well. The idea is to work with our partners to be able to see how they can use that to build applications end to end. So it's not just about the best model, but combining models with visualization to ground it together. So the reason why ChatGPT was successful wasn't because it was the best model, because Chat became the right interface for that. Similarly, for medical imaging models, you need to have not just the models, but the visualization layer so that you can adapt and kind of iterate from there as well. So that's a common visualization tool. And again, we had like over here, like Medicine looking into, okay, can I use it for segmentation, measurement, so that it is integrated end to end from day one as well. So those are some of the examples of how collaborations really help supercharge and make 1 + 1 greater than 2 as well. I know we are at time, so I'll end the talk over here as well, where the idea is how do we go from reactive one-off signals to more proactive care, and looking forward to how we can collaborate together into that space. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you, Pari. So in the interest of time, I'm going to, instead of calling all of our speakers up, encourage some mingling, encourage conversations with our speakers if you can engage them with your questions and interests. And also, of course, speak with each other about some of the ideas that came out of the session on the fundamentals of partnerships and resources with CADRe.